Good evening. This is Mike Crotella with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today we have a 2v2 on Calderis Refinery, and our first player right here is MyMe as this Orc Mekboy, this teleporting ranged hero who can shoot with his little shooter, can get a bigger shooter, can get a beamy def gun, has some very interesting and unique stuff such as being the only hero who can be a suppression weapon. And he can also synergize very well with Knobs later on with the super tough beam as well as his battery pack for healing. His teammate is Chaos Librarian as this Thousand Suns Sindri Trollface Chaos Sorcerer. The Chaos Sorcerer is a devastating spellcasting and trickster hero, can mind control, can make people explode, can be really, really incredible. On the other side of things, we have Kisuke, the Forgiver, as this Tyranid Hive Tyrant, this astoundingly powerful hero. He is the tankiest hero to start out. He can become even more tanky than he already is, and he can just be very powerful and tough, does not get knocked down or suppressed, and he walks through cover. Finally, we have E.G., that Torpid gamer, as this Lictor Alpha. The Lictor Alpha is a very, very powerful melee infiltration hero. He can infiltrate, although right now he's not infiltrated at all. In fact, the heretics are infiltrated, but not him. But he is very powerful with his Flesh ability, good for disrupting in single models, especially good against heroes. And the Lictor Alpha, just a very good hero overall for countering basically a lot of the game mechanics that exist in this game, such as setup teams, heroes, etc. So it looks like, I don't know, I was going to say, trying to make a judgment on who's coming out on top this first engagement. Actually, it looks like the Tyranids are coming out on top. Chaos Librarian was doing well, but then he got doubled. Where is MyMe? MyMe is coming. He's coming in from the side. We already have some Spore Mines out from Kisuke. He got that as part of his opening build, and I think that's a very good choice. Although an even better choice is a very, very early Electric Armor from MyMe on his Mekboy, a very early warrior choice in the form of that Electric Armor. I think that is a fantastic early choice. He actually got that Electric Armor before getting big shooters, and that was literally his first power purchase, and I think that was a very smart power purchase, because he is getting a very, very quick area of effect ability to punish blobbing and to punish those high model low HP squads that inevitably come out of the Tyranid opening. So that's a very, very smart choice. And getting that early really allowed basically is going to help them out really early on winning in engagements before the Tyranid players get some kind of tankier unit, and even then, that's still just a good ability overall. It also helped MyMe there, since he was in a case where Chaos Librarian had already been kind of forced off, and he was on the field kind of fighting 2-on-1, or it was more like 1.5-on-1, since some of Torpid Gamer's units had been forced off, while a few of Kisuke's were still on the field. And by doing that, he was able to basically counter Kisuke's Termagants with the Mekboy alone. So a very efficient use of the Mekboy right there, and just an efficient play. So we have double Aspiring Champion Heretics on Chaos Librarian's Heretics. He also has Infiltration. I think he needs to open fire with his Havocs, though, but he's got some tricky positioning because he's got units coming from both sides. But again, we see that Electric Armor from MyMe on his Mekboy being very, very effective. Obviously, it's clearly a very good choice against the Tyranids, at least early on, when you have to deal with those Termagants. Now, Torpid Gamer has also gone for a warrior that I think is a very good choice. She got the Feeder Tendrils on his Lictor Alpha. Those Feeder Tendrils are just an extremely good weapon. 63.75 DPS power melee with a 2% health regeneration. Chaos Librarian's Heretics getting very close to dying, but they actually take out the Lictor Alpha, so very good early wipe by Chaos Librarian. And that Lictor Alpha, those Feeder Tendrils were such a good choice, but unfortunately the Lictor Alpha still managed to die anyway. I would have talked about how those Feeder Tendrils really help a lot to give the Lictor Alpha a lot of staying power. They can make him very tanky, and it's actually very hard. It can be very hard, especially in Tier 1, to deal with him. The Chaos Sorcerer is in a lot of trouble right there. Chaos Space Marines also overstaying their welcome a little bit, but we have some very good team play. MyMe helping out by using aiming what's that to suppress the Hormagaunts and slow the retreat. That actually allowed Chaos Librarian to get his Chaos Space Marines out of there without losing a single model on that squad. I think if MyMe hadn't done that, if he hadn't done that aiming what's that, Chaos Librarian probably would have lost at least one model off of his Chaos Space Marines, if not two. So MyMe spent a little bit of red and actually saved his teammate from some bleed. So a nice play. He's also already got both the big shooters and the shooter knobs, as well as having the Daka big shooter on his Mekboy. Now, this is very good. This actually complements Chaos Librarian very well, since Chaos Librarian, as a Chaos player, and given the build that he has, he's got a single Chaos Space Marine and a Havoc. He doesn't have much in terms of passive ranged damage output. And I mean passive as opposed to the abilities which I would consider active, that would be coming out of Doom Bolts, which is certainly a lot of damage, but it's just he doesn't have normal ranged weapons that are doing a lot of range damage. He only has that one Chaos Space Marine, and then the Havoc is good for suppressing, but not really for doing damage. So MyMe, on the other hand, has gone for a very overwhelming range DPS build. He's actually about to kill some Termagants. One Termagant goes down already for Kisuke. Again, a beautiful Mekboy play from MyMe. He's chosen a very good build. He's chosen a build that is obviously well-tailored to the matchup. And Chaos Librarian, on the other hand, is struggling quite a bit. It's actually MyMe who's doing very, very well against the Tyranids, while Chaos Librarian is struggling a little bit. He nearly lost his Havoc, and he got many of his other units forced off. Also nearly lost Heretics and even his Sorcerer. And I think, oh wow, Kisuke even lost another Termagant brood. But yeah, so MyMe has that overwhelming range DPS build between fully upgraded shooter boys as well as the Daka big shooter on his Mekboy. And that's going to be, it's complementing Chaos Librarian's build, since Chaos Librarian just isn't very well suited with his build and with his chosen hero and race. He isn't very well suited to taking out single entities early on in the game. And we have two very, very powerful single entities. The Hive Tyrant, which is already upgraded with 2 upgrades. The Lictor Alpha, some of the most obnoxious tanky melee heroes in the game. So MyMe is very well suited to taking out all of those units, while Chaos Librarian is not. And by all of those units, I'm specifically referring to the Hive Tyrant and the Lictor Alpha. Now, Kisuke has lost both of his Termagants. He doesn't seem to be caring about it too much. He already has a Tyrant Guard out on the field, a Walker type unit, but with super heavy infantry armor instead of vehicle armor. He's also getting some Gene Stealers. So Kisuke is going for a full-on melee build. He actually has literally no ranged units whatsoever at this point. And Chaos Librarian seems to be responding a bit by getting the Robes of Torment. Tyranids, of course, can have some very melee-intensive builds, so getting the Robes of Torment is not a bad choice. Torpid Gamer, on the other hand, does still have the range damage output of both his Termagants as well as his Warriors. Now, this Blood Crusher choice is actually working out very well for Chaos Librarian, and it's actually something that at this point he kind of needs, and it's really doing a lot for him. Here we go with that Mekboy again with that electric armor being absolutely devastating. Beautiful, beautiful play with that electric armor. This Blood Crusher also doing very well, since the Hive Tyrant has already committed to the Rending Talons, which means he will need to pay again if he wants to switch to the Crushing Claws to have heavy melee. So right now this Blood Crusher from Chaos Librarian is it's relatively uncountered. We have only... Well, we don't have any real counters to that Blood Crusher or this Death Dread from MyMe, aside from the Tyrant Guard. So, blue team definitely taking the field a bit on the power of their Tier 2 Walkers that are relatively uncountered at the moment. We have a Zoanthrope out, on the other hand, from Torpid Gamer, nearly wiping the Chaos Heretics, but the Zoanthrope itself will nearly get wiped if it really stays in long enough against this Zoanthrope. And Chaos Librarian is just going for it. He's just straight up going for that going for that Zoanthrope, and he just might be able to get it, but there are a few too many things in his way. At this point, alright, looks like he is going to get out of there. He was still taking damage from something, and it looks like he may even risk losing his Blood Crusher right here. He was going hard for that Zoanthrope, and it didn't seem like such a bad idea on paper, but something was actually managing to do some kind of damage to the vehicle armor of that Blood Crusher. Infestation towers are going down to increase the speed of those Tyranids to help them catch up to that Blood Crusher, but it does get out of there alive, and we also have this Death Dread from MyMe, another Walker-type vehicle. And both Chaos and Orcs also have access to very early walkers, cheap walkers. And of course, these are walkers that are not going to be as powerful as the more expensive ones, but the advantage is that you can get them earlier and that they're very cheap. They're also a bit faster. The Death Dread, not fast normally, but it does have an ability that can increase its speed, as well as the Blood Crusher being quite a bit fast. Although the Death Dread now is in quite a bit of trouble, both Tyranid players have responded by getting Venom Broods, and it is probably somewhat necessary. And we have Chaos Heretics nearly dying. The Blood Crusher, no, not the Blood Crusher, the Death Dread goes down, so MyMe does lose his Death Dread because both Tyranid players have responded with Venom Broods, and that Death Dread had been snared by the Focused Warp Blast from the Zoanthrope, which is, I think, pretty much the sole snare that comes out of Tyranids. The Zoanthrope has a Focused Warp Blast ability. It does explosive damage, so it does do some AV damage by itself. It's also very nice in that it is a long-range snare. Unlike many of the other snares from the other races that where you have to get very close to use the snare, the Zoanthrope can be used at long range. That being said, I would say most other races still have probably better overall AV than Tyranids. Shooter Boy's in a lot of trouble right now. I think, yeah, MyMe's going to try to get them inside the truck. That was risky business. He nearly lost at least one of those Shooter Boy squads, if not both of them. We also have a Brood Nest going up in the middle, which will allow all of these Tyranid units to reinforce and also heal. This Brood Nest is something that was not very useful in retail, but has proven to be very effective with the buffs it has received in Elite. And it's something that can become, a Tyranid player, a Hive Tyrant player, can become very, very difficult to dislodge and force off the field once they have a Brood Nest active. That Brood Nest only has 300 health. It cannot be repaired. It needs to heal over time, but it can still just be extremely effective just because it can be so hard to force the Tyranids off. Some things you can do, you can actually use the Dark Flames Global. I think that will actually kill a Brood Nest outright. Any kind of artillery would also be a good choice. It looks like Chaos Librarian did eventually lose his Blood Crusher as well, even though I did not catch it on camera. And we see those big Tyranid blobs right now. Chaos Librarian actually uses Sigil of the Rift, gets the Zoanthrope, and the Zoanthrope goes down. So a beautiful Sigil of the Rift blade from Chaos Librarian. That Sigil of the Rift is a teleporting ability. You can teleport any infantry unit. And that was actually a situation where the Sigil of the Rift was really not guaranteed. That was mostly a called shot on Chaos Librarian's part, hoping that Torpid Gamer would just not expect it and not respond quickly enough, and that's exactly what happened, and he was able to take out the Zoanthrope. Use that ability to put it out of position. That's one of my favorite things about the Sorcerer, that Sigil of the Rift ability. It has a lot of versatility, somewhat difficult to use, but it can be used to put a unit out of position and to kill it outright, which is what we saw right there. Now, that was a situation where there was really no guarantee that the Zoanthrope would have been teleported there, but it ultimately still happened. So, Tier 3 for all three players. MyMe has a looted tank. Not a bad choice. A tank is pretty hard to go wrong with. Since tanks are anti-all, that makes them one of the most versatile units in the game. They're anti-all. They are also vehicles, which means they carry the threat of being a vehicle to your opponent's units. This particular tank, I think, would be pretty nice against the Tyranids, since it has that boom shot ability that allows it to disrupt blobs. But we have just a huge Tyranid blob right here. These are both Tyranid players combining together to chase down MyMe. On the other hand, we also have a Chaos Predator. Oh, and there we go with that electric armor again. Haven't seen as much of that now. And the Mekboy should not just stay in there fighting the Tyrant Guard. MyMe probably was did not entirely realize where his Mekboy was, and now he might lose it on retreat, a very likely chance. But actually, the Mekboy gets out of there. Now we have the Chaos Predator from Chaos Librarian. More powerful than that looted tank, but not without the ability to disrupt with an ability. The Chaos Predator has no ability, but more powerful than that looted tank. Very nice overall, especially potentially a very nice answer to the inevitable Carnifexes that you and Swarm Lords that you can expect from Tyranid players, especially with an upgrade to a Las Cannon. Now, many of the players here are floating resources, so that means from Kisuke and Torpid Gamer, we could probably expect either a Carnifex or a Swarm Lord pretty soon. MyMe was floating resources and actually going for the Battle Wagon, New York Battle Wagon, a very good unit, very fast considering how tough it is. This Tyrant Guard for Kisuke will go down, though. It's caught way out of position. I don't know what he was doing with it there, but Chaos Librarian does manage to get a cap off with his 6-man Chaos Heretic squad. I don't know if... It looks like they actually are winning against these Hormagaunts, in part because the Hormagaunts are not fighting. And now Chaos Librarian has a huge advantage here. And with that next Doom Blast, he tries to throw some Doom Bolts in as well. And it looks like those Hormagaunts are going to get wiped for Torpid Gamer. Probably just not paying attention. What's going on here? MyMe suffered a few losses, but it looks like the Tyranid players are suffering the greater losses right now. And now we do see that super unit spam coming out of the Tyranid team. Oh man, that Termagant Brood seemed like it would have come so close to dying. And yeah, Torpid Gamer losing quite a few units, but now we have that super unit spam out of the Tyranid team. We have the Carnifex for Torpid Gamer. We're gonna have a Swarm Lord out for Kisuke. And we also have a dead Tyrant, massively overextended, fighting the entire Orc army by himself. MyMe has opted to get stick bombs as well, some pretty late stick bombs, but that's also something that's very nice for punishing huge blobs, which is what you can expect from Tyranid players often. Now, it's often a little bit harder to use against the Tyranids than against, say, Imperial Guard, because you really have to call your shots. The Tyranid players will be charging forward, and you have to be careful about not throwing your stick bombs in such a way that you end up throwing past the Tyranid units. And there we have a warp-rifted Las Cannon with the Sigil of the Rift again, snaring that Carnifex, although the Chaos Havocs also got disrupted by the Carnifex because of the Bioplasma ability, because this is a Venom Cannon Carnifex. Gives it a Venom Cannon, does armor-piercing damage, so it will... Oh, wow! I thought that Chaos Predator was going to go out of there, get out of there. I thought it was going to get away from the Venom Cannon Carnifex, but we had these Venom Broods as well that just kind of came in from the side and killed Chaos Librarian's Predator. Now we do have that Orc Battle Wagon. It has the Death Roll activated, but it needs to be very careful of this Swarm Lord. That Swarm Lord is a tough unit to deal with. I feel like you don't see a whole lot of the Swarm Lord, since, I mean, he is more expensive than the Carnifex, and the Carnifex is also extremely, extremely good and serves a very similar purpose. But I actually think the Swarm Lord is a bit better. And I mean, it should be, considering it's more expensive and you can only get one of it. But I actually just think it's really, really good, given... one of the big things is its speed. The Swarm Lord is fast, and the Carnifex is slow. The Swarm Lord allows allied Tyranids, or not allied Tyranids, but just... It allows your Tyranids to retreat. It can actually heal itself, and it has that Storm of Blades ability, which if you can catch any kind of infantry unit with the Storm of Blades ability, it can be absolutely devastating. Even extremely tough infantry units like Knobs are known to get utterly destroyed by that Storm of Blades ability from the Swarm Lord. So Chaos Librarian seems to frequently find himself in positions where he is being put somewhat out of position. His heretics are nearly dead. He is being charged by way too many things. He used the Warp Global to get a Havoc Squad, a Las Cannon Havoc Squad close to him so that he could use it against the Carnifex, and the Carnifex goes down for Torpid Gamer. But now we have a Swarm Lord chasing down the Predator, and there's not a whole lot to stop that Swarm Lord. The Havocs for Chaos Librarian needs to set up. And again, that Swarm Lord, one of the great things about that Swarm Lord, since he is fast, he can potentially be very good against vehicles, probably better as anti-vehicle than the Carnifex, precisely because he is faster. And it's going to be much tougher to micro away from the Swarm Lord than it is against a Carnifex. And again, we need MyMe to micro his looted tank right here because that Swarm Lord just gets in so quickly. And that looted tank is not actually that tough, especially since this one does not have the reinforced plating, but MyMe has activated the Cult of Speed Global to make them go a little bit faster. It would be actually, I think that's a very nice global to use against Tyranids when you're focused on countering Tyranid super units with tanks. Now, one of the things MyMe needs to be careful about is that he has this Orc Battle Wagon, this tough vehicle super unit for the Orcs, and right now he doesn't exactly have repair support. He does not have any Slugger Boys at this point, and it's, what is that Battle Wagon doing? And he has the Mekboy who can repair, but he's frequently keeping the Mekboy away from the Battle Wagon because his Mekboy is on capping duty. You might want to do something like put the stick bombers on capping duty, and those stick bombers instead seem to be inside the battle wagon. If anything, I think the Mekboy should be inside the battle wagon. The stick bomber should be outside, and he should keep the Mekboy inside so that he can repair with the Mekboy. And then if he wants to use that electric armor ability, he can have the Mekboy jump out, teleport to where he needs to go, and then activate the ability. So still quite a Tyranid blob right here. Chaos Librarian has this Mark of Tzeentch Chaos Predator. Again, it's anti-all. It's a little overwhelmed as far as infantry goes, so it does need to be careful. Here's a Tyranid formation about to disrupt a bunch of things. Now that Tyranid formation, I personally think it's not that great of a nuke, but it's still fun to see it go off, disrupting a lot of things, probably not going to kill anything, but still enough to cause a panic. Although, with all that panic, the second Predator from Chaos Librarian does go down. MyMe's Orc Battle Wagon is also in a bit of trouble and needs to get out of here. Chaos Librarian is getting overwhelmed, and so is MyMe. They're getting overwhelmed in part due, and the Battle Wagon's definitely going to go down. No way it's going to get out of there, so sad to see that Battle Wagon go down as well. Chaos Librarian going with a new Predator. I'm actually wondering if he would maybe should consider getting something else. That Havoc is going to go down. No. And it's 216 VPs to 54. MyMe actually has a late Weird Boy on the field. It's hard to go wrong with a Weird Boy, but I think it would be better earlier on when it could really do its damage against those, both as a melee counter as well as using its Plasma Cannon ability to do very well against units like Termagants. But it needs to be extremely careful about this Swarm Lord. The Swarm Lord can really stands a chance to wipe that Weird Boy. And MyMe is actually lacking a bit for counters to a unit like the Swarm Lord. He may even want to consider, he's not just considering, he's actually getting the BB Death Gun, so he was thinking much in the way that I was thinking right there. Oh no, the Weird Boy horribly out of position. I think he will get out of there alive if he can just freaking retreat. And now this is a double cap for the red team. MyMe getting overwhelmed when he's the one with the stronger army. Chaos Librarian now choosing to get some Plague Marines because these, especially this Swarm Lord, has kind of been proving to be exactly as good as I have been saying that it would be. It's just stayed on the field. It's been endlessly threatening to the blue team. They have not been able to get rid of it or even really threaten it. I don't think I've seen the Swarm Lord at less than half health. So Chaos Librarian is trying to go for some caps now. Nearly loses a Heretic squad. Very close, even with that Flesh Hook after the fact. But Chaos Librarian is going for these Predators. Predators, in some ways, are not bad, or in some ways, they're actually very good for dealing with those Tyranid super units. But something about the way things are going right now, Chaos Librarian is just having trouble making that work. He's lost 2 Predators. He has a 3rd right here, and it's getting forced off the field. Now the Swarm Lord is in melee with those Plague Marines. And look at how just look at how fast and huge and threatening that Swarm Lord is, being absolutely beastly. The Plague Marines want to turn around now, get a missile hit. But the VPs are now evening out a bit. The blue team had a lead of about 216 to 54. It's now brought down. It's been brought down to just 100 to about 50. And the Predator goes down again. Another Predator goes down because we actually have a Venom Cannon Hive Tyrant. So Tyranid AV, somewhat lacking in my opinion. Kisuke just decides to use whatever options he has at his disposal, so he actually gets a Venom Cannon Hive Tyrant. This is a mediocre weapon, but it's just another source of AV that Kisuke knew he could field, so he actually did it to get rid of that Predator, and he actually killed the Predator with a Venom Cannon Hive Tyrant.
Shoot up those bigots at your service.
Stick bombs going off on those Gene Stealers, and they actually get out of there. I felt they could have stayed there longer. Yet another Tyrannoformation. Again, not really seeming to kill anything, but it does cause some panic. And it is also the army that's getting hit by the Tyrannoformation is getting disrupted, while the Tyranid army, which is often very big, can just kind of move right in. The fourth Predator. Oh my God, a Rocks! Let's not miss the Rocks. The Rocks ultimately not killing much. It actually looks like it's doing some damage to that Venom Brood. Kills one Venom Brood model, but other than that, that's pretty much it. So not a whole lot out of that Rocks. MyMe going for a second Battle Wagon right here. And we have a regular Lictor. This is a Lictor from Torpid Gamer. Needs to be very careful with that Lictor, though. And the VPs are roughly even, 64 to 54. Chaos Librarian with that fourth Predator. But the Swarm Lord is just still alive, man. We have Heretic Worship from a single aspiring champion. I think he should get out of there. Soon going to be a double cap for the red team, so they will get the VP advantage. This unit gets some level 4 Mark of Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines came very, very close to dying. And there we go with some robes or chains of torment from the Sorcerer to stop those Gene Stealers. And oh my God, the Swarm Lord is just right in front of the Chaos Space. Chaos Librarian has been pushed back a lot, and he has lost a lot. MyMe is going for another decap in the middle to even out the VPs. The VPs are exactly even. And this Predator is going for the Predator is going for the Mark of Tzeentch again. That will nearly double its anti-infantry firepower. And we have yet another Battle Wagon out of MyMe. Now let's see, where is his... So his Mekboy is outside. Now at this point, his Mekboy probably is better off being outside of the Battle Wagon, since he should be using his Mekboy as a source of AV, since that's one of his sources of AV. Oh, the Battle Wagon now a little overextended, not in a good position. Seems to be having trouble getting out of there. And we actually, it appears we have some kind of haywire effect on the Swarm Lord, or it's just doing something right there, I don't know what. But the VPs are actually, yeah, they're actually still in favor of the blue team, 54 to 46. Tyranid units are going down. I think a Warrior Brood comes very close to dying, but will just barely get out of there. But Chaos Librarian is being absolutely overwhelmed by all of these Tyranid super units. And the fourth Predator goes down from that Venom Cannon Hive Tyrant. That Venom Cannon Hive Tyrant putting in work. And this Hive Tyrant is also really tough now at level 8. 1,700 hit points. So very good use out of that Venom Cannon Hive Tyrant from Kisuke, just giving himself another source of AV, and that's one of the things that I firmly believe in when it comes to dealing with vehicles. It's important not just to think in terms of how good any given source of AV is, but I actually think it's more important to get multiple sources of AV. And the Swarm Lord may just finally go down right here. It's a no-cap game. Blue team about to get one cap off. They're only at 15 VPs left, and the Swarm Lord finally goes down. That Swarm Lord was an MVP, and Kisuke is just starting to build another one. And of course, he really should. It's actually a double cap for the blue team right now. Chaos Librarian about to lose that Sorcerer, though, thanks to that Carnifex. Is forcing melee, but we have some Chaos Terminators right here. They should actually force melee the Carnifex, and that's exactly what they're doing. still have Termagants out on the field for Torpid Gamer. He's kept them alive all game, unlike Chaos Librarian. I mean, unlike Kisuke, who lost them pretty much immediately. And now we have an overwhelming force in the middle of Orcs and Chaos. And it looks like Termagants finally went down for Torpid Gamer. It looks like the VPs are just about going to go in favor of Chaos Librarian and MyMe. And a very, very close finish. Fantastic game. There were some great things in that game. Obviously, the Swarm Lord out of Kisuke was godly. His Venom Cannon Hive Tyrant was amazing, considering that's often considered a useless upgrade, but he made great use out of that Venom Cannon Hive Tyrant, just giving himself another source of AV. Chaos Librarian was actually struggling quite a bit this game, and this was definitely not the strongest game out of Chaos Librarian, losing 4 Predators, and losing a lot of units and often getting overwhelmed very easily. MyMe was actually really the star of the game, just from pretty much everything. With keeping his team in the game with caps, the early play where he was carrying actually more than his weight, thanks to that Mekboy with the electric armor, which he kept on the Mekboy all game. Fantastic game overall, though. Hope you enjoyed the cast. Have a good night.